If you're on the path to parenthood through surrogacy, you are already on an incredible journey, just filled with amazing, joyful moments. But, amid all that excitement, there's one critical piece of planning that can make all the difference for your baby and, honestly, for your financial future. So today, we're going to break down newborn insurance. Just think about that feeling for a second. The absolute thrill of matching with your surrogate, the butterflies during the embryo transfer, seeing that very first ultrasound, and then hearing that strong, steady heartbeat. Wow, those are the moments you're going to cherish forever. But in the middle of all that joy, there's a detail that gets overlooked way too often. And ignoring it, well, it can turn one of the happiest times of your life into a potential financial nightmare. We are talking about health insurance for your newborn baby. Okay, let's just dive right in with a principle that you've got to keep in mind through this whole process. Hope is not a strategy. Of course, every single intended parent is hoping for a perfectly healthy baby, a smooth delivery, no complications. But hoping isn't enough. Real solid planning for the unexpected is what actually protects your growing family. So, what's the core issue here? Well, it all comes down to a critical insurance blind spot. It's a really common and potentially really costly misunderstanding about how insurance actually works in a surrogacy journey. Let's just call this the umbilical cord rule. It's simple, but it is absolutely vital to understand. Your surrogate's health insurance, it's there to cover her medical care, her pregnancy, her delivery. But the second that umbilical cord is cut, your baby is legally a whole new separate patient. And from that moment on, every single medical bill for that baby is your financial responsibility. Relying on the surrogate's plan is a massive, massive gamble. And believe me, it is a gamble with incredibly high stakes, especially when you start to look at the real-world chances and the staggering costs of neonatal intensive care, what we call the NICU. So here's the first number you really need to absorb. About 10% of all newborns in the United States need some level of care in the NICU. That's 1 in every 10 babies. This isn't some rare 1 in a million event. It's a significant possibility for literally any birth. And that risk? Well, it actually changes when it comes to an IVF pregnancy. For a single baby, the risk of a preterm delivery is already a bit higher, somewhere in that 10 to 15% range. But for twins, which, as you know, is a pretty common outcome in assisted reproduction, that risk just skyrockets to around 60%. This is exactly why having a solid insurance plan becomes exponentially more critical if you're expecting multiples. So what's the bottom line here? What are we actually talking about in dollar terms? Well, if your baby needs a serious, prolonged stay in the NICU, the bill without insurance can easily climb past $500,000. Just let that number sink in. It's a life-altering amount of money, and it makes it painfully clear why this is not a corner you can afford to cut. Okay. So that's the problem. It's serious. It's real, which brings us to the most important question of all. How do you actually protect your family from this kind of risk? Let's get into the solutions. All right, first up, let's talk to the intended parents who live here in the U.S. For you, the path to getting coverage is usually the most straightforward and manageable one. The magic key here is something called a qualifying life event, or QLE for short. The birth of a child is a QLE, and that's huge because it triggers a special 30-day window for you to add your newborn to your existing health plan. And the best part? The coverage is retroactive, meaning it goes all the way back to the moment of birth, protecting you from day one. So here's a simple little roadmap to make sure it all goes smoothly, because being proactive is everything. First, get in touch with your HR department or your insurance carrier early in the pregnancy. Then, ask them specifically what documents you'll need for a surrogacy birth. It can be different. And most importantly, do not miss that 30-day deadline. Once it's all done, get that written confirmation. That's your final peace of mind. Okay, now for all the international parents coming to the U.S. for surrogacy, the situation is, well, it's a bit more complex. For you, this becomes a really high-stakes financial decision, and you have a few very different paths you can take, each with its own pros and cons. This table breaks down your 3 main options, so let's walk through them. First up is cash pay. It's simple. You pay for everything out of pocket. This is definitely the cheapest route if the birth is perfectly healthy, but it carries extreme financial risk. If the NICU is needed, you are on the hook for every single dollar. Second is specialty insurance. These are plans literally designed for surrogacy, and they cover the NICU, but they have high premiums and this is critical, a very strict enrollment deadline, usually around 28 to 30 weeks. If you miss it, that option is gone for good. And finally, there's coverage through the Affordable Care Act, or ACA. This can be great comprehensive coverage, but eligibility for a non-resident newborn is really complex, it varies by state, and you can only enroll after the baby is born, which can create a scary coverage gap.
So all of this complexity brings us to a really practical, actionable point. You have got to choose your surrogacy agency wisely. Because all this knowledge is only useful if you have a team, a partner, who can actually help you navigate these choices.
So here's the deal, and this is so important. You have to have this conversation during your initial consultations before you sign any contract. Ask these questions directly. A professional, experienced agency should be able to walk you through the options, the deadlines, and the risks without even blinking. Their expertise here is just non-negotiable. If they seem unsure or if they kind of brush off your questions, that is a major, major red flag. When you really boil it all down, your journey has two potential outcomes. On one side, you've got early, thorough planning that leads to security and, frankly, peace of mind. And on the other side, waiting too long or not planning at all can lead to six-figure surprises and an incredible amount of financial stress. And that choice between those two paths, it's made right at the very beginning of the process. So we'll leave you with this one question to think about. As you plan this incredible journey to build your family, have you done what it takes to make sure your baby's future is truly secured? Because making sure they have the best possible start, fully protected from any financial uncertainty, well, that's one of the most important first steps you can ever take as a parent.